Welcome to Myco Minute, conversations about collaboration brought to you by the capacity creators at Myco Consulting, LLC, where we help higher ed, nonprofit, and philanthropic leaders advance the initiatives they care about most.
Hey, this is Deb, and today I am joined by Elizabeth Eiss, who is both a friend and a member of the Myco Advisory Board, and she's had this incredible career both as a high-performing C-suite executive as well as I don't know how many startups that you have started up, but including results resourcing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So first of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for being one of my Myco cheerleaders.
Oh, I am delighted to be here. Thank you. And I just so admire what you're doing. And some of the things that are important to you are really important to me. So I feel like we're really on the same page in a lot of arenas and learning from each other. So I'm really happy to be part of the session today. Thank you.
So Elizabeth, one of the things I really admire about you is you are an incredible connector. And when I was making my decision about whether to go out on my own to launch Myco, you're one of the first people I told. And right away you start introducing me to people who you're like, you should talk to this person and this person and this person. I found that incredibly valuable. I'm wondering if you can speak to how you understand your role in your networks. How do you think about who do you want to bring into conversation with whom?
Great. That's a really good question. And I'm actually going to talk about networking actually before I answer this question, because it's a lesson that I learned. I spent years in corporate America, I happened to have been in the insurance industry primarily. But in my early years of corporate life, to me, my network were the people in my business, in my company, or the people I served, that were clients or customers of the business. And that was my network to me. And when I joined my first startup and have been more in the business owner startup entrepreneurial space in the past 20 years, I've really come to learn that networking isn't about the people that you're closest to in your company or the people you sell to, or it's not even about selling. The more people you know that can spark your curiosity, can inspire you, help you with tangential thinking, systems thinking, so you can start relating things that may not be obvious in the beginning. There's no way to go on a forced march to do that. But the more you network with people and listen and hear, the more connections you make, which really spark your imagination. And then out of that, you end up meeting all these interesting people that you're not meeting them because you have an objective, that you're trying to sell something to or anything like that. But it's like, if you just follow your instincts to connect with people that seem interesting to you, they're interesting because of whatever that item is that attracted you. But then it turns out they have all these other very interesting things that they do too. And so there's this multiplier effect of getting to network with interesting people. And so I have really come to learn that, life is about networking and business is about networking.
Yes.
Whatever your profession is, it's about networking. And I'm also a big believer in giving. Going into a networking experience with the spirit of giving, like, what can I offer, and you also obviously get something back, but here's how I could help Deb, or I could help Sam, or, whoever it is, I think that, that feels more approachable. It's very open. People are more open to it because they don't feel like you're trying to push anything on them. You're just genuinely interested in them as people and their ideas about whatever it is attracted you to them. So I wanted to start with that because I think it's that attitude that really is important. And because when you do that, you start building this network that is just so inspirational and useful in so many ways. And I remember talking to a friend who was getting ready to leave corporate America. And I said, I looked at her LinkedIn profile because that's one of the major networking tools. And she, had a couple hundred very senior executives. She only had a couple of hundred people connections. And I said, well, you really should start now before you leave, corporate America, building this network of people, And she said, oh, well, I'm not looking for a job. So she didn't see any need to it. And I think that's really old thinking,
Right.
because I think that whether it's business groups or LinkedIn or whatever it is, those are really important ways to build a network. And so the role I see myself play is really, I don't think about myself as having a role other than I just think it's really interesting to make connections. And so when I was listening to what you wanted to do, it just immediately fired off, names of people that I thought, oh, they would benefit from knowing about Deb and what she's doing. Deb would learn and gain insight from those people. So there'd be this mutual exchange. So it was just such a natural thing. And so I think, I don't really think about having a role other than, my automatic response is making connections is a way to give.
So I love that, both because I think for a lot of people, this idea of network, you touched on this a bit, feels smarmy and calculating, as opposed to it's about relationship and being in some space. And I don't mean sector necessarily, but we inhabit, this planet. Everyone's trying to do something, and knowing that we all have gifts to bring to bear on those intuitions and intentions, I think is really important. And I'm also reminded of a metaphor that I'm very fond of, which is out in the forest, out in the little prairies and whatnot, that the lightning bugs of the same species use the same flash signals. And this is how different species of lightning bugs are able to find their correct conspecifics with whom to mate. And so what strikes me is you're somebody who's able to see who's flashing in the same way, so you know who to introduce to make the amazing things happen.
That's a great analogy. It's really true, and I think that that while there's an initial connection because of the flash, then there's, I guess, some cross pollination, because all of a sudden there's new things that you either discover you have in common, or all of a sudden somebody that you could introduce to this person. So it just kind of builds.
Yeah. And I think some of those initial flashes are often about values or ways of being and ways of doing, and not necessarily concrete, here, I need this skill and I need to go talk to a person who can do this. And there are a couple professional development networks that I know you are intimately involved in. So I'm thinking of Elevate and ShiftCo. I'm wondering if you can speak a bit about what those organizations do and why they exist.
Okay, well, those are two terrific networks. Elevate is a network for women professionals, and I've always, as a woman professional, I've always been interested in helping other women, achieve their professional goals. And it's a network of support system, education, and networking,
Right.
to find other people that can, you can collaborate with and learn with. And, so I've always been really interested in Elevate from that standpoint. And in the past year or so, accelerated by the pandemic, there's been a real focus on business owners, women entrepreneurs within that organization. It initially, in my view, started out as an organization to support women in businesses, large corporations, and it still plays an active role there. But more and more, there's women who are entrepreneurs starting their own thing, and how do those businesses scale, and how do they scale both their impact as well as scale, the operations of their business. So I'm really interested in being part of that conversation. And there's 4 of us that are on kind of the entrepreneurship leadership team for Elevate: Deb Boulanger, Simone Sloan, and Ruchi Penninger. And we're a very diverse group, which I think sends a really important message too. Yes. So it's a structure that brings like-minded people, the same fireflies, together for similar things, but then the same network effect happens with that, and then within that environment.
And I love that idea of a structure. Just to interrupt really quick, like the idea that to offer a container in which the networking can take place, as well as some formal programs and experiences. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you interrupted because I tend to get on a roll. But I think you raise a really good point about the structure, because it gives people a path to follow, which I think is good too. Because sometimes it's hard to just, if you think about going to a networking event, you walk into a room of people, it's like, where do you start? It's intimidating.
The sea of possibilities.
Yeah, it's hard. So I think having a structure, there's different paths depending on what you're comfortable with. Just sitting in on a webinar or actually participating in a squad coaching group or something like that, or delivering a webinar. It gives you that structure to follow, which I think is
so. Then
helpful.
What about ShiftCo?
Well, ShiftCo's another one. They're really a network of purpose-driven businesses, and the goal of ShiftCo is to basically move the world by shifting how business is done, and that purpose is important, values are important. And so it's a group of people that are very purpose driven. You obviously want to be successful financially, because then that helps you move your vision forward. So the two aren't they're very much aligned, and it's just, how do you do that? How do you build a purpose driven business? And the whole thing, it's a conscious business growth platform, in providing tools and coaching and mentoring and a network again, where people with common interests can work together in a structure that helps them build their businesses, depending on whatever stage they're in.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and I've dabbled in both of those groups, and I found them both valuable. So speaking of platforms, we need to talk about collaboration, but I particularly, in order to do that, I want listeners to understand what results resourcing is. And then I'm going to ask you a bit about the role collaboration plays in that business. So tell us about what you're up to with results resourcing.
Okay. Well, no one has actually ever asked me about results resourcing from the standpoint of collaboration. So I thank you for that, because it is a very important element to what we do. To make a long story short, after a long career in corporate America, I joined my first startup and started to work and consult with early stage companies, and I discovered what an amazing resource freelancers were. Resources are always finite. Resources are always tight, and you could get really amazing talent to join your team. They're just freelancers, and you work with them for the time you need. You're not making a permanent employment, and many of them are businesses, so they don't really want to be your employee. They have their own business. So anyway, I discovered the beauty of freelancers. But what I discovered, that it was really hard to find really good ones. And there's tons of structured platforms out there for finding freelancers. There's maybe 1,000. I mean, there's so many. Most people have no clue.
And these are the various places where you can go and throw up a job ad, and then a whole bunch of people will throw up their resumes, and then you are somehow supposed to actually wade through all of these, like those platforms.
Exactly. From Google Jobs to Upwork. I mean, they're all useful and good, and they have collaborative purposes too. Some are all for writing, some are for legal skills. I mean, there are all kinds of platforms that are unified by, various ideas. But at the end of the day, I was very passionate about small and mid-sized businesses, because those were the earlier stage companies trying to grow and scale, and how could they get access to great talent? And the platforms didn't offer much collaboration.
So then what did you bring into this picture? That's
exactly what I brought into it, which I had never thought about till today. I mean, so I built results resourcing as a technology platform, like an Upwork, for example, that I designed and code developed. But what I added into it was human beings.
What a great idea.
Real humans. Yeah, we have professional recruiters that work for our company that help our clients. And we start by actually talking to them about setting up a job description and help them do it. Because if we're both not clear on what they want, we're not going to be successful finding the right freelance choices for them. And so we start with human interaction, collaboration on the job description. Then they do pay us a small fee for us to go find talent for them. But then we go do that, and we interview, we collaborate with the freelancers too, because we want to know about their skills, experience, their cost, and their potential cultural fit, because all those 4 things are important to successful relationships. And then we basically give our clients, here are the top 3 people that we found, vetted, interviewed, and curated for you. Through that collaborative process that we have. And then we let our clients interview the people too, to get a sense of the people. And then they hire through our platform and they begin collaborating with their freelancer.
So you're, I think of you as a high touch matchmaker, connecting freelancer talent with the needs of small businesses, but also not just businesses, because I'll say that how we actually met was we happened to be in the same bridge group.
Yeah.
And somebody at the bridge group, I was sharing a challenge that we were having within my organization where we needed some talent right away. It was going to be urgent. And I, was wringing my hands like, what am I going to do? And she said, Deb, Elizabeth over on that side of the room, this is exactly what she does. And so I ended up learning about you and results resourcing, and ultimately the beginning of our friendship, both through Bridge and through this conversation. And it was such a cool experience to go through because I had never written a job description before. That's not something they taught me in professor school. So it was a highly mentored experience there. You really understood what we were looking for. And then the experience of you ended up helping us connect with 2 different freelancers who were just exquisite human beings who I loved working with and who were such a value add for the organization. So I can, this notion of being in relationship, and it's because you took the time to know us well and you knew them well that you knew it was going to be a match. So just to say, love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, tell me about something from, say, the past year or so, like the biggest undertaking, the biggest collaborative experience that you've had at Results Resourcing.
Oh, there are many, but I think I would call out 2 that are the most significant, and that it really kind of goes back, keeping with the theme of collaboration, to the fact that I don't think you can approach any organization from a standpoint of control. I think the world is about influence and intentions. And, for me, it's conscious business, authentic, genuine. I want our clients and our freelancers to succeed together. I mean, that's my ultimate measure of success, and hopefully why people work with us and come back with us is because of that. And so I approach everything about our business that way. And I don't feel I have to have employees or control. What I want is partnerships. I want to collaborate with people. And one of the ways I've chosen to scale is collaboratively through partnerships. So rather than building an enormous employee base, I'm a big believer in actually something that Peter Drucker said decades ago: do what you do best and outsource the rest. And so rather than building a marketing team, for example, I examined several different options, and I ended up contracting with a marketing service. I mean, they're freelancers too. I mean, it's 1099 work. It's freelance is the same as hiring out to a marketing agency. It's the same kind of idea. And so I've really focused on building partnerships that are highly collaborative, where, I don't feel there's a client relationship here. It's like we're a team working together on, here are the problems we need to solve this week. And I just call this one out, but there's several like that. And I'm also building collaborative business partnerships with organizations that have pools of high caliber freelancers. I mean, freelancers can sign up on our platform, but we're all about making best matches, that curation process. And so I care very much about the quality of the people that want to work through results resourcing, because I'm making those matches.
Well, and the other thing I love about what you're talking about is it reminds me of the Hair Club for Men thing, where the guy would say, like, I'm not just the president, I'm a customer, but you're really walking the walk. Like, you don't have this huge employee team under you, but you're using the exact system and approach and philosophy that you embody through the results resourcing brand.
Very much. I'm a freelancer also. I mean, I do freelance technology projects, on the side. I mean, my main thing is obviously results resourcing, but I always want to know what it's like to be on both sides. And I think that's, helps us keep in touch. I mean, obviously for a technology company like us, we're trying to automate and systemize as much as possible and provide that structure that you mentioned earlier, for the collaboration, because that's what makes it cost effective. Because ultimately, if our collaboration is so expensive, people can't afford it. So there's a balancing act, and we don't always get it perfectly right, but then we learn from that and try to figure out a way to do it better.
Well, that's been one of the pieces of wisdom you've shared with me many times already, and just the short time horizon of Myco here is it doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate. You go out, you do it, and you learn from it, and you iterate and you refine, and then something's going to shift out there, and you'll have to refine again. And so I really see you as someone who's modeled that. Okay, so here's the fun question. So I know
they've all been fun so far.
Oh, good. Yeah, so I didn't just hold one fun question. That's good feedback. I know that you love dance, bridge, and cooking. So I have a question to ask about each of those, but it's a choose your own adventure. What would you like to be asked about?
Wow. I think I'd like to, I want to answer all three actually, but let's take cooking, because in the COVID environment, I've just been doing a ton of it.
Excellent.
It's very creative, but
okay,
they'd all be fun.
Yeah, so this is a question about metaphor. So what do we know about collaboration from the lens of cooking? So what connections do you see?
Wow. Okay. Well, I think first and foremost is the recipe itself, because it's a collaboration of ingredients.
Love it.
And it's a mix of different things and tastes and things like that. And of course, I'm not by the rules cook, so I take the recipe with a grain of salt, to use a cooking metaphor, and I play with it, and I emphasize the things that I think I'm going to like or whatever. And then I also think cooking's collaborative in the sense that, especially some recipes, I think about who would I like to share this with, and bringing a group of people together. Of course, that's been more challenging, this past year because of social distancing and all that. But, that's been a fun thing for me too, thinking about, I saw this great recipe, well, I mean, mushroom bourguignon, whatever that mushroom
I can never
stew
say
thing.
that one.
I can't say that word. Yeah, that French word for stew or whatever. But it's like I immediately thought about you. It's like, oh, I would love to share this dish with Deb, because of Myco and all that kind of stuff.
And I love mushrooms.
Exactly. And growing, some, your own. But so I think about, how to collaborate around food. And I think that dinner tables, coffee shops, those sorts of things, food brings people together, and it's relaxing. And again, it's that thing that people like. It's a common thing that will bring people together. So conversations can occur about, you never know where the conversation is going to go. So those are two things off the top of my head, I would say.
I love it. I'll say two other things are coming up for me is when you made that mushroom stew, there was also this moment of negotiation, which happens a lot in collaboration, where you said, I'm thinking of putting it on top of polenta. And I said, I don't like polenta. Can we do mashed potatoes? And you were totally like, yeah, let's do that. But this idea that in collaboration, there are going to be different needs and interests. And one of the ways we honor each other is by being honest about what those are and bringing them into the space and working around them. So that elevates for me as you were talking. And the second one is the idea that the importance of systems again in collaboration, and that the recipe offers us a structure. It doesn't mean it's, that it has to be rigid, because like you said, you can play around with it, but overall the results of the recipe tend to be better if you at least start with some sort of structure. Same thing for collaboration. It's not that, I mean, if you want to see or stack a collaboration toward failure, frankly, you just say, oh, just go do something together, and you offer no structure for it. And sometimes it works out, but typically it doesn't. It's because you need systems and processes and tools and people. So
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. As I was writing out that question, I was, playing in my head about different connections, and then new ones came up for me as you were talking. So that's exciting.
Cool.
Thank you for
Yeah.
playing with that.
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring it back to one other thing you said a moment ago about perfection, and how I just think perfection is such a trap, and not from the, berating yourself for not being perfect perspective, but I've really come to learn that there is no such thing, because you have some perfect idea in your head, but that doesn't mean, I thought polenta would be perfect. You didn't. So it's not perfect. It's just different, and I've really learned, as you serve people, you realize their needs are different. It's not perfect. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. And how do you build a business or an organization that's agile? And to me, agility is building flexible structures and embracing collaboration, embracing conversation, because that's where you're going to learn, and you're going to shift. So there is no perfect. It's just being able to shift. That is a form of perfection, being able to shift so you can adapt your business, not in ways that don't work for you, but in ways that work mutually, for you and the group you want to serve.
I love it. I was going to ask you for a closing piece of advice, but I think you just gave it to us. It was beautiful. So looking at the time, we're going to close, but I want to thank you both for the magnificent work you're doing on behalf of small business owners such as myself, but also for your leading of Myco and your friendship to me. For people who would like to learn more about Elizabeth and results resourcing, the website will be in the show notes, and it's resultsresourcing.net.
Yes.
Right. So I don't screw it up there. And of course, if you would like to talk to me at any point about cultivating complex collaborations in higher ed spaces and other tricky spots, please reach out through LinkedIn or through the website www.myco.consulting. It doesn't have a .edu or .com or anything. And so I find myself tripping over that. But Elizabeth, such a pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate you being here.
This was very fun and very collaborative. Thank you so much.
High five. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.